When it was announced that The Division 2 was getting a roguelite game mode in the Descent, I really didn't know what to expect. The Division 2 didn't seem like a game where a roguelite mode would really fit into, with it revolving around honing and perfecting builds. So after having some time to sit down with the game mode in the recent PTS, I wanted to give you my first impressions and thoughts on how this may or may not fit into the live game. First, a thank you to my supporters over on Patreon on how you can support at the end of the video. Before I go over my thoughts and feedback for the Descent, I want to quickly go over what it is for anyone who's missed it so far. The Descent is a new game mode coming to the Division 2 set in a training simulation. When you start the game mode, you are stripped of everything and actually given a randomly generated agent to play in the simulation. Starting out, you have nothing but a single weapon and skill that the game mode lets you pick out of 3 randomly generated weapons and skills. You have no gear as it's known in the game, but instead, every time you complete a randomly generated room, you're given the choice of 3 talents to pick from offensive, defensive, and utility. However, the combination which you get to choose from is decided by the room you enter. Playing through the game mode, as you complete a room, you're given a choice of multiple rooms to proceed through, with them varying in difficulty and choice of talents. Each room you complete builds up your Nemesis percentage. Once this hits 100%, you will go up against the Nemesis, which is a rogue hunter-like boss encounter ramped up to 11. This is the game mode put simply for the sake of this video, but I will do a full review after all phases of the PTS, and a much more in-depth guide when the game mode hits the live game. With this being the PTS, a lot of things could potentially change between now and then, and I wouldn't want to give you information that will be irrelevant when it's actually launched. Alright, so let's start with the positive. The Descent nails the roguelite type of game mode. Everything is random. Your character, weapons, skills, talents, the rooms, all of it feels shaken up enough for it all to feel different and really push you out of your comfort zone. If you're like me, you spend a lot of time in the live game using the same builds and probably farming the same spots. Descent strips you of the norm and forces you to use weapons, skills, and talent combos that you really wouldn't consider using, or, to be honest, are even possible in the live game. It also puts you into situations that may or may not play to the strength of the build you currently have, which can add a bit of challenge. However, the downside here is that there is a reason we stick to the builds we love. That's because in most cases they are either efficient or just fun. Making your loadout out of random stuff can actually remove the fun in some cases if you're unlucky enough to end up with weapons and skills you just don't enjoy using. When it comes to the rooms, each did feel different but in a familiar way, which I think comes down to a few of them using existing layouts and set pieces from game missions and locations. The looks of Descent work, but it doesn't feel as unique as I thought it would. A lot of it just felt like I was running around a part of the DARPA lab mission, with the exception of a few rooms, like the pretty cool White House set. Something that I did really enjoy in the Descent was the stacking of talents. You could have a max of 5 talents for each type, offensive, defensive, or utility, but each of those talents can stack up to 10 times, which can massively increase their power far beyond what we see outside of the Descent. Now this feels very, very strong and very, very fun, but it can leave the standard versions of these talents we use feeling a little bit lacking when you get back to the main game. On the other hand of the spectrum, we have the difficulty. So when you finish a room, you move into kind of an in-between area where you get to pick the next room to move into, usually between 2 or 3. Before you enter your next room, it gives you a bit of information like the difficulty and the types of talents you're going to get at the end. To begin with, probably like most people, I stuck with a few easy rooms getting the swing of the game mode, then tried some normal, and as I got comfortable and more confident, I started doing the hard rooms. But if I am completely honest with you, I couldn't really tell the difference between the 3 difficulties. I don't say this as any kind of weird brag, I genuinely couldn't tell. The enemy spawns seemed the same, hitting with the same damage, taking the same amount of damage. There was the odd room with a hazard like fire or EMP, but other than that it all felt kind of the same. I do think we need to see the hard ramped up to make it a bit more of a challenge, but this could be an easy fix with just a pass or 2 through the difficulties before launch. The point in this game mode where difficulty really did seem to peak was the Nemesis. Nemesis is the final boss of the Descent, dropping you in an area similar to the front of the DC Boo, and after playing through what I thought were some pretty easy rooms, Nemesis really caught me off guard, and very nearly ended my first playthrough. I did genuinely really enjoy the Nemesis fight, although it can be easily overcome with just a few mags of shock rounds. They did a great job with this encounter, but it might be worth disabling special ammo for this section. Right, now, the elephant in the room and the topic everyone seems to want to talk about: rewards. In the recent phase of the PTS, Descent didn't have any rewards enabled, which is fine. The PTS is not to farm, it's to give feedback. For me, the problem isn't the lack of rewards here, it's the time investment. I've already seen on Twitter a few of the more hardcore players get the time to beat Nemesis down to under 30 minutes, but keeping in mind that the majority of the player base are more on the casual spectrum, the Descent seems to require quite a bit of playtime to get to Nemesis, potentially over an hour per run, so again this is quite a time investment. When compared to game modes like Countdown, which gives you a massive amount of loot for a sub 15-minute run, why would you spend an hour or more in Descent, possibly for less? We obviously don't know the answer yet, or what kind of rewards we will earn. And of course there are people who will play the game mode simply because they want to play the game mode. But for players looking to min-max, grind loot and crafting materials, we're going to have to wait to see what's on offer. Personally, I'd be okay with the game mode having a countdown-like currency and a vendor, where you can buy loot or crafting caches. So the longer you play, the more currency you earn. That way the reward is worth the playtime. The more time you put in, the more rewards you get. But again, to compete with the countdown vendor, this would probably have to be fairly generous. I think when it comes to the Descent, its biggest problem is also its biggest weakness, and that's to me that it's simply too self-contained. It feels like a game within a game, which it kind of has to be, being roguelite. But this also makes it feel a little bit disconnected from everything we've done up until this point in game. However, I'm sure a few things on release will fix this, but right now, the game mode has good bones, but it just needs fleshing out a little bit with some lore, commendations, collectibles, and of course the rewards. Most of which haven't been confirmed yet, but honestly I'd be shocked if they weren't a part of the package at launch. Have you had a chance to play Descent, or have you watched it on any streams or videos? What do you think so far? Are you eager to get in, or is this going to be just another summit? Let me know in the comments below. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe for future uploads, and as always, a massive thank you to my supporters over on Patreon for helping me make this channel the best it can be. If you would like to join them, you can support the channel for as little as £1 a month. You'll find a link to the Patreon in the description below, or consider becoming a channel member. Have a great day, and I'll catch you in the next one.